The heart monitor's steady beeping was the only sound in my hospital room as I read the message again. Mr. Peterson, several moving trucks were here today. Your daughter-in-law had documentation showing she owned the contents of your home. I'm so sorry. My name is James Peterson, and at 72, I never expected to lose everything while recovering from a heart attack. Mrs. Walker, my neighbor of 30 years, had tried to stop them. But Sarah, my daughter-in-law, had arrived with notarized papers claiming ownership of everything my late wife, Margaret, and I had spent 50 years building together. The envelope in my trembling hands had waited 5 years for this moment. Margaret had placed it in my care just weeks before cancer took her, making me promise not to open it unless Michael and Sarah tried to claim our home. Keep it safe, James, she'd whispered. I've arranged everything with Edward. Edward Hayes had been our family lawyer for 4 decades. Margaret had spent hours in his office during her final months, but had waved off my concerns, saying she was just updating her will. Now, as I carefully broke the seal, I understood my wife had seen something I'd missed. Inside was a letter, a USB drive, and a key to what I recognized as a safety deposit box. My dearest James, if you're reading this, then our son and his wife have made their move sooner than we expected. I've watched Sarah since she married Michael, seen how she studies our home, our possessions, the way she asks careful questions about insurance and property rights. What she doesn't know is that I've been studying her too. The USB drive contains everything Edward and I discovered. Her previous marriages, the mysterious fires that destroyed 2 other family homes, the insurance claims that followed. Nothing in our house truly belongs to her. I created a trust, James. Everything of value. My mother's jewelry, our antiques, the family heirlooms, they're all safely stored away. What Sarah took today was what I wanted her to take. Replicas, good ones, but worthless beyond their surface appeal. The key opens box 247 at First National. Inside you'll find the trust documents, the real deeds, and evidence of Sarah's past. Take it to Judge Marcus Sullivan. He's expecting it. He's been expecting it for 5 years. Be careful, my love. Sarah is more dangerous than Michael knows. All my love. Margaret. I closed my eyes, remembering Margaret's quiet determination in those final months. She'd insisted on cataloging everything in our home, photographing each piece, writing detailed descriptions. I thought it was just her way of coping with her illness. The room's phone rang. Edward Hayes himself. James, Mrs. Walker called my office. I've been waiting for this day. Everything is ready. Judge Sullivan has cleared his afternoon. I can't leave the hospital, I said, hearing the weakness in my voice. We'll come to you. Marcus and I, there's something you need to sign. Within an hour, my hospital room had become an impromptu legal office. Judge Sullivan, still sharp at 80, studied Margaret's letter while Edward spread documents across my adjustable bed tray. Brilliant woman, your Margaret, Sullivan said. She and Edward created an ironclad trap. Everything of real value was transferred to a special trust 5 years ago. The papers Sarah showed today, they give her ownership of very convincing duplicates. The moving trucks, I started, took exactly what Margaret wanted them to take, Edward finished. The real paintings are in climate-controlled storage. The genuine antiques are safe in a bonded warehouse. Even your wife's jewelry collection. What Sarah took were spectacular fakes Margaret had made. My hands shook as I looked through the trust documents. Margaret had thought of everything. The house itself was protected by a complex legal structure that only appeared vulnerable. There's more, Sullivan said quietly. Sarah's been busy since she married Michael. 3 suspicious house fires in the past decade, all involving elderly in-laws, all resulting in substantial insurance payments. Michael, I began. Knows nothing, Edward assured me. Margaret had him investigated too. He's a victim as much as her previous husbands were. She targets wealthy families, marries in, then orchestrates accidents that leave her in control of family assets. A soft knock. Agent Diana Martinez from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit entered. Judge Sullivan called me. We've been building a case against Sarah Winters, that's her real name, for years. Your wife's evidence might be what we need to finally stop her. I thought of my son, Michael, how proud he'd been introducing Sarah to us 5 years ago. How she charmed us with her knowledge of antiques, her apparent appreciation for family history. The timing of your heart attack, Martinez said gently, might not have been entirely natural. We're running tests on your blood samples. The implications hit me hard. Sarah hadn't just tried to steal our possessions. She might have tried to kill me. Edward patted my shoulder. Margaret protected you, James. Everything Sarah took is documented, photographed, and worthless. Her attempt to seize the house will trigger legal mechanisms that expose her entire history. Judge Sullivan nodded. By tomorrow, her previous identities will be revealed. The insurance investigations will reopen. Michael will finally see who he really married. And our son, I asked. How do we protect him? Margaret thought of that too, Edward said, pulling out another document. She set up a separate trust for Michael. One that Sarah can't touch even as his wife. She can't steal what she can't find. Agent Martinez's phone buzzed. Sarah just tried to access the safe deposit box listed in the fake documents. Box 247 at First National. Margaret's masterstroke, Sullivan smiled. The box contains irrefutable evidence of Sarah's crimes. By trying to access it, she's walking right into a trap. The next few hours were a blur of legal activity. My signature was needed on various documents, activating the protections Margaret had put in place. With each passing hour, Sarah's carefully constructed fraud began to unravel. By evening, Michael arrived at my hospital room, his face ashen. Dad, I'm so sorry. The FBI showed me everything. The previous marriages, the fires, I had no idea. I held my son's hand, seeing the lost boy beneath the successful businessman. Your mother knew. She protected us both. Sarah's been arrested, he said quietly. Tried to access a safe deposit box that triggered some kind of federal alert. They found evidence about the other houses, the other families. Agent Martinez returned with updates. Sarah's previous identities had been confirmed. 2 other families had come forward, recognizing her from attempted frauds. The investigation was expanding internationally. Your wife, Martinez told me, built the perfect trap. Sarah thought she was following her usual pattern, but every step she took sprung another part of Margaret's plan. Later that night, alone in my hospital room, I read Margaret's letter again. My brilliant, beautiful wife had spent her final months not just fighting cancer, but fighting to protect our family's future. The night nurse brought me a photo Mrs. Walker had retrieved from our house. Margaret and me on our 50th anniversary, just months before her diagnosis. She was smiling that knowing smile I'd loved so much, the one that said she had everything under control. Rest now, Mr. Peterson, the nurse said. Your blood tests came back clean. Just a normal heart attack. You'll be home soon. Home. Thanks to Margaret, it would still be there, still filled with our real treasures, our true memories. Sarah had taken only what Margaret had wanted her to take, props, in an elaborate play that had finally reached its final act. I touched Margaret's photo, remembering her last words to me. Trust in our love, James. It will protect you even when I'm gone. She'd been right, as always. Her love had protected not just me, but our son, our legacy, and now, through the evidence she'd gathered, other families who might have fallen victim to Sarah's schemes. 3 days after Sarah's arrest, I was discharged from the hospital. Michael drove me home, both of us silent as we passed the places where the moving trucks had been parked just days before. The FBI found storage units in 3 states, Michael said finally, pulling into our driveway. She had collections. Things taken from other families. Photos, jewelry, documents. She kept trophies. Inside, the house felt different. Sarah had taken most of the furniture, artwork, and decorative pieces Margaret had seemingly collected over the years. But there was a strange comfort in knowing the real treasures were safe. Edward Hayes was waiting in the kitchen, which still had its appliances, apparently. Sarah hadn't bothered with anything she couldn't easily resell. "Ready to see what Margaret really saved?" he asked, holding up a set of keys. We drove to a climate-controlled storage facility on the outskirts of town. The unit was massive, professionally organized, and filled with our true family treasures. Everything was carefully labeled in Margaret's precise handwriting. "Mom cataloged everything," Michael whispered, touching a crate containing his grandmother's china. "Every piece, every story behind it." "She did more than that," Edward said, opening a leather portfolio. "She created complete documentation of Sarah's activities, bank records, insurance claims, witness statements. 5 years of careful investigation." The portfolio revealed Margaret's methodical mind. She had traced Sarah's movements across 3 continents, uncovering a pattern of marriages, suspicious deaths, and vanishing family fortunes. "Your mother," Edward explained to Michael, "noticed something about Sarah during their first meeting. The way she asked about insurance policies and property titles. Too specific, too knowledgeable." Agent Martinez joined us at the storage unit, bringing new files. Sarah Winters, born Sandra Whitman. Changed her name at 18. We've confirmed 7 previous marriages, 4 suspicious deaths, and over $12 million in fraudulent insurance claims. Michael sat heavily on a storage crate. "I thought she loved me." "She loved what you represented," Martinez said gently. "Access to family wealth, trust funds, property. Your mother saw through it immediately." I picked up a photo album Margaret had secured. Our real family photos, spanning generations. She protected everything that mattered. The duplicates were masterful, Edward added. Museum-quality reproductions. Sarah thought she was stealing priceless antiques. Instead, she took very expensive props. Martinez's phone buzzed. "Sarah's trying to make a deal. Says she can expose a larger network of similar operators. Claims there's an entire organization targeting wealthy families." That's when I remembered something from Margaret's letter. "The safety deposit box. Has anyone opened it yet?" "Waiting for you, Mr. Peterson," Martinez smiled. "Your wife was very specific about the sequence of events. At First National Bank, Box 247 yielded its secrets. Beyond the trust documents and evidence was a second letter from Margaret, dated just days before her death. My dears, if you're reading this, then Sarah's true nature has been exposed. But she's just one player in a larger game. The USB drive contains everything I discovered about the network she works with, the lawyers, the forgers, the insurance adjusters who help them target families like ours. I didn't just protect our family, James. I built a case that could protect many families. Agent Martinez has been waiting for this evidence for years. Michael, my darling boy, don't blame yourself. Love makes us vulnerable, but it also makes us strong. Your father and I have made sure you're protected. The trust I created for you can never be touched by Sarah or anyone else. James, my love, there's one more thing. In the garden, beneath the rose arbor you built me, there's a waterproof case. Inside is everything I couldn't risk storing elsewhere. Go there when you're alone. All my love. Margaret." That evening, after Michael had gone home and the agents had left, I went to the garden. The rose arbor stood exactly as it had for 30 years. Margaret's favorite climbing roses still blooming. The case was exactly where she said it would be. Inside, I found Margaret's real jewelry, pieces handed down through generations. But more importantly, I found her personal diary. My dearest James, the first page read, "This is the true story of our last year together. How I discovered Sarah's plan, how I worked to protect our family, and why I had to keep so many secrets. I stayed in the garden until dawn, reading Margaret's words. She had known her cancer was terminal even before Sarah arrived in our lives. She had recognized in our daughter-in-law the same patterns she'd read about in old case files. The next morning, Agent Martinez arrived with news. Sarah's network is crumbling. Her associates are turning on each other. Your wife's evidence is irrefutable." Edward brought more documentation. The trust Margaret had created was even more sophisticated than I'd realized. She had not only protected our assets, but had created a foundation to help other families identify and escape similar predators. "The Margaret Peterson Family Protection Trust," Edward explained. "It's designed to provide resources, legal support, and safe storage for families who suspect they're being targeted." Michael arrived later, looking clearer than he had since Sarah's arrest. "I found something in our house," he said, holding out a small book. "Sarah's real diary. It's horrible, Dad. She wrote about everything. The other families. The plans she had for us." Martinez took the diary as evidence, but not before we saw enough to understand the full scope of Sarah's intentions. She had planned to eliminate both Michael and me, staging accidents that would leave her in control of everything. "Your mother saved us," I told Michael, holding him as he finally broke down. "She saw what we couldn't see." In the following days, more evidence emerged. Sarah's network included corrupt probate judges, insurance investigators, and real estate agents. They had specialized in identifying wealthy families with complex asset structures, then inserting their operators through marriage or friendship. Margaret's careful documentation had exposed it all. Her final act of love wasn't just protecting our family. It was protecting countless other families from similar predators. The garden became my sanctuary as I read through Margaret's diary each evening. She had written about her fears, her discoveries, and her race against time to build an unshakable case while cancer consumed her. "I won't let them win," she had written. Not Sarah, not her partners, not even death itself. Love is stronger than their greed. Love leaves legacies they can never steal. A month after Sarah's arrest, I stood in Margaret's garden, watching as FBI agents cataloged more evidence from across the country. The Margaret Peterson Family Protection Trust had become a beacon for other victims, bringing forward stories that confirmed my wife's suspicions about a larger criminal enterprise. 3 more families came forward today, Agent Martinez said, joining me by the roses, all with similar stories. The network targeted elderly couples with substantial assets, usually through a charming son or daughter-in-law. Michael had thrown himself into helping these families, perhaps as a way of atoning for unknowingly bringing Sarah into our lives. He'd established support groups, worked with investigators, and helped create a warning system for potential victims. "Dad," he called from the patio, "Judge Sullivan needs us at the courthouse. They're unsealing more of Mom's evidence." The courthouse had become our second home over the past weeks. Margaret's meticulous documentation was being revealed in carefully planned stages, each disclosure triggering new arrests and revelations. Judge Sullivan looked tired but satisfied as we entered his chambers. "Your wife's evidence has exposed corruption in 3 state courts," he told me. Judges, clerks, lawyers, all part of the network that helped Sarah and others like her operate. On his desk lay a new set of documents. Margaret's detailed analysis of how the network identified and targeted victims. She traced property records, probate filings, and insurance claims across 20 years. Mrs. Peterson didn't just document Sarah's crimes, Martinez explained. She mapped the entire organization's methodology, We've identified 37 active operators working similar schemes. Michael studied a photo array of suspected conspirators. This one, he pointed. She came to our wedding. Said she was Sarah's cousin. Angela Roberts. Martinez nodded. Another operator. Currently running a similar scheme in Florida. Thanks to Margaret's evidence, we're stopping it before anyone gets hurt. The scope of Margaret's investigation still amazed me. While fighting cancer, she built an airtight case not just against Sarah, but against an entire criminal enterprise that preyed on families like ours. Back home, Edward Hayes waited with more news. The foundation is official, he announced. The Margaret Peterson Family Protection Trust is now a registered nonprofit. 3 families have already placed their assets under its protection. The trust worked just as Margaret had designed, providing secure storage for family heirlooms, legal support for victims, and educational resources to help others identify potential predators. We found this in Sarah's storage unit, Martinez said, handing me a leather-bound book. It's their playbook. Everything Margaret suspected and more. They called it the Inheritance Protocol. The book detailed their methodology: how to identify wealthy targets, forge documents, manipulate family dynamics, and ultimately steal generations of accumulated wealth. Your mother, Martinez told Michael, didn't just stop Sarah. She gave us the key to dismantling their entire operation. That evening, alone in the garden, I read more of Margaret's diary. She'd written about watching Sarah study our home, knowing what she planned but having to play along while building her case. The hardest part, she'd written, is seeing how she's fooled our Michael. But I have to let it play out, have to gather every piece of evidence. This isn't just about protecting our family anymore. It's about stopping them from hurting anyone else. The next day brought more developments. Sarah's cousin in Florida had been arrested. The foundation's hotline rang constantly with new reports, each fitting the pattern Margaret had documented. We found their training center, Martinez reported. A compound in Montana where they taught new operators the tricks of the trade. Margaret's evidence led us right to it. Michael had started counseling other victims' children, helping them process the betrayal of discovering their spouse was a predator. His own healing came through helping others understand they weren't alone. Mom knew, he said one evening, sitting in Margaret's garden. She knew what Sarah was, but she couldn't warn me directly. It would have ruined the investigation. She protected you the only way she could, I replied. By making sure Sarah couldn't actually hurt you. The foundation grew rapidly. Margaret's methodical approach to documentation became a template for other families to protect themselves. Her checklist of warning signs was now standard reading for estate lawyers and financial advisors. Judge Sullivan called a special hearing to review the latest evidence. Mrs. Peterson's work has exposed corruption in 12 states, he announced. The network's ability to operate is completely compromised. Sarah, facing overwhelming evidence, finally broke. She provided details about the organization's leadership, methods, and other operators. But Margaret had already documented most of it. Your wife, Martinez told me, built a case so solid that Sarah's confession is just confirmation of what we already knew. Edward brought updates about the foundation's work. Families were learning to recognize the warning signs Margaret had identified. Potential victims were being warned before predators could strike. She created something lasting, Edward said. Not just protection for our family, but a shield for others. In the garden that evening, Michael helped me plant new roses, Margaret's favorites. Mom's last gift wasn't just saving us, he said. It was showing us how to save others. The Margaret Peterson Family Protection Trust became more than we'd imagined. It was a legacy of protection, a testament to one woman's determination to turn her personal battle into salvation for others. Sarah's network crumbled as more evidence emerged. Margaret's careful documentation had created a domino effect. each revelation leading to more arrests, more recovered assets, and more families protected. The hardest part, Margaret had written in her final diary entry, is knowing I won't see this through to the end. But I've laid the groundwork. James and Michael will finish what I've started. Love doesn't end with death. It transforms into protection for those left behind. As autumn approached, Margaret's roses bloomed one last time. The garden where she planned her counterattack against Sarah's network had become a symbol of hope for other families. The Foundation's work would continue, growing beyond what even Margaret had envisioned. But its heart would always be here, in this garden where love had proven stronger than greed, where one woman's foresight had created a legacy of protection that will last for generations. She knew, Michael said, watching the sunset paint Margaret's roses gold. She knew exactly what would happen, exactly what needed to be done. I touched the rough bark of the rose arbor, feeling Margaret's presence in every thorny stem, every blooming flower. She protected us, I said. And now we protect others. That was Margaret's true legacy. Not just the evidence that brought down Sarah's network, but the foundation that would continue her work, standing guard over families like ours for generations to come. One year after my hospital stay, I stood in Margaret's garden, watching families gather for the Foundation's first annual memorial service. The rose arbor, now expanded into a healing garden, provided shade for dozens of people who had found protection through Margaret's foresight. The network is finished, Agent Martinez announced during her speech. 32 convictions, including Sarah's 20-year sentence. Over $40 million in assets recovered and returned to families. All because one woman refused to let evil triumph. Michael, now the Foundation's director, had transformed his pain into purpose. He counseled other children of targeted families, helping them rebuild trust after discovering their spouse's true nature. Mom built more than evidence, he told the gathered crowd. She created a blueprint for protection that will save families for generations to come. The Margaret Peterson Family Protection Trust had exceeded all expectations. What began as one woman's defense against a predator had become a nationwide shield for vulnerable families. 3 cases prevented this month alone. Edward reported, joining me by Margaret's favorite roses. Families recognized the warning signs from Margaret's checklist. Predators identified before they could strike. Sarah's sentencing had marked the beginning, not the end, of our work. Her network had been vast, but Margaret's evidence was vaster. Each document, each recorded conversation, each trace dollar led to more arrests, more recoveries, more families saved. The hardest cases, Michael shared later, are the ones like mine, when you have to accept that someone you loved never really existed. But Mom knew that too. She left guidance for healing, not just justice. The Foundation now offered counseling, legal support, and secure storage for family heirlooms. Margaret's methods had become standard procedure for estate planning, her warning signs taught in law schools. Judge Sullivan, speaking at the memorial, summed it up perfectly. Mrs. Peterson turned her private battle into public protection. She transformed personal tragedy into universal triumph. In the garden that evening, after the crowds had gone, I read Margaret's diary one last time. Her final entry still brought tears. Asterisk, my dearest James and Michael. Our family's story is an ending. It's becoming a beginning for others. The garden will bloom again. Love will triumph over greed, and what we've built together will protect generations to come. Remember me in the roses, in the sunlight, in every family saved from predators like Sarah. Remember that love leaves legacies no evil can steal. All my love. Margaret Asterisk. The Foundation's work continues, growing stronger each day. Margaret's roses still bloom in our garden, watching over new families finding their way to safety, protection, and healing. And somewhere, I know, Margaret is smiling, seeing how her love transformed loss into legacy, pain into protection, and one family's story into salvation for countless others. Her final victory wasn't just exposing Sarah's network. It was showing that love, properly prepared and carefully planted, grows into something no predator can destroy. In the end, Margaret didn't just save our family's treasures. She created a treasure that keeps saving families, a legacy of protection that blooms as eternally as her beloved roses.